inshallah we'll discuss what? Regarding the vocabulary development, because it's important, okay? To learn any language, and that's what you do, yeah? What like vocabulary you have learned in, let's say, Japanese or Spanish? Yes?
I learned, there's one that means the difference between like how are you,
Yes?
and what's up. So in Japanese there's ogenki desu ka means how are you.
Okay.
It's more the polite way, but choshi wado is like what's up, the casual way.
Okay.
So
Yeah, like formal and informal, yes. Okay, what about the Chinese, the Spanish language? What did you learn?
I learned how's it going, and K is like what. So we use K when we don't understand something, like what, and Ketal is like how's it going. Yeah.
Okay, yes?
And I learned that it's not a vocab, but the way we use you,
Yeah?
tu, is like more informal. Like you would say was to someone who's like I don't remember. But there's a way of saying you to an elderly and to your friend, let's say.
It's different.
Yeah, it's different.
Okay, so that's related to the context and all that,
Yeah,
yeah?
yeah.
And gesture,
Yeah.
yes?
I learned that the structure of the sentence is different. For example, we say I am Afra, but in Japanese, I Afra am.
Okay, so structure is different.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So here we'll focus more about what? The vocabulary and how it's learned, okay? So usually to develop the vocabulary, we will learn what kind of strategies, okay? So for example, if we start with early childhood, how can we teach vocabulary for early childhood?
Pictures.
From birth, let's say, to 1 year or 2 or 3 or 4. Yes? Using?
Pictures and pointing.
Yes, you can use like direct way with photos, pictures, yeah? And you point to the picture, okay? And you teach them, okay? Other examples?
Imitation.
Yes? What do you mean by imitation? And
I,
that's related to what theory? Behaviorist, yeah?
yeah, behavior.
Related to the behavior, yeah? Okay?
Yeah.
Like what? Give me an example.
So for example, a mother wants the child to learn that this creature is a cat.
Okay.
So a cat sound is meow.
Yeah.
So instead of saying cat, said cat meow, so that they can connect it. So when they
Yeah.
said meow, they know it's cat.
Yeah, so you teach them by the sound
The
at the
sound,
beginning.
yeah.
Okay, good. And also for imitation, for example, when we say jump, okay, so what you do, you jump,
Jump,
yeah?
yeah.
So that's mean what? It's jumping, okay? So those kind of some strategies, okay. So usually even teachers and parents try to what? To learn different strategies to teach their children how to learn vocabulary, okay? And sometimes what they do, they use a portfolio. Portfolio for what? To collect whatever data or ways of vocabulary that they learn, yeah? Okay? Like what? Like what will you do in your research? It's kind of
It's like to see the improvement, like the progress.
Yes.
Yeah.
As a portfolio, and we discussed. I was discussing with Fatma, yeah, about how she will write it. Like you can make it as blogs or tables, yeah, and you write it like the vocabulary. When did you learn it and all that, yeah, and how you connect with whatever, like like for example, when she mentioned like the structure of the sentence. So you write that, yeah, and then when you go back, so you understand like when you start with this, and then mashallah you recognize all the other steps, yeah. So it takes time, and you understand what the progress, and that's why sometimes we collect whatever we have as a materials as a portfolio. It's good for us, for the parents, because sometimes the parents they want to ask the teachers, what did you teach our children, yeah? So they can show them like how they progress from, let's say, writing just a letter and then writing a word, yeah? It's not easy, yeah? to teach them from a letter to a word. Okay. Okay, for example, sometimes through poetry, yeah, you can teach them, yeah, and through some sentences. For example, here what? Like, you know, shoes, ships, yeah. So here, what kind of, like, if we think about the phonemic awareness, phonetics, phonology, so what we can teach the children here? The ship.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah, the ship part, yeah. Here shoes and here what? Ship,
Ships.
yeah. Ship, same sound, yeah. Okay, so what we call it? Is it phonemic awareness or phonological awareness or phonetics? It is phonemic. So what does mean phonemic awareness?
The sound of the word.
Yeah, when you have
similar.
a word, individual words about individual word, okay, and so what this like when you have sh, so how you pronounce it as sh, yeah, shoes, yeah, or maybe the word laugh.
Yeah.
What is the ending? Is it F? Do you write it F? No. Yeah. GH, yeah. So that's what's the phonemic awareness. So sometimes you teach the children like, you know, SH means ch, okay? And for example, the word love, LAUGH, so GH is what? F, when you have it at the end of the word, okay? So that's part of what the phonemic, okay? Awareness. When we think about like, also the time is important, okay? When you teach like what time, let's say from birth to 1 year, or 1 year to 2 years, 2 to 3 years, it's important to teach them, okay? Because sometimes, usually, the children, what they do? They what? Construct and reconstruct. What does it mean, construct and reconstruct?
To build and rebuild.
Yes, what they build? Language, yeah? A word. For example, when I told you like my kid, okay, he's now 3 years, okay? Old. So he said like, you know, Za'jun. So first he wants Za'j, and then Un, for plural, yeah? So all of you, okay? And then also, for example, you know the moon, the qamar?
Yeah.
So how did I teach him that is the moon? What do you think? How will I teach him about the moon?
You showed him.
Yes.
You pointed.
Yes, this is the moon, yeah? For example, in the weekend, I was driving, me and my family and with my kids, from Ras Al Khaimah to Dubai, okay? It was after Al-Isha, okay?
Yeah.
I think it's like around maybe 10 o'clock or 10:30. So imagine, the moon will be there, yeah? The moon, is it half moon or a whole moon?
Whole. I didn't see them.
This period of time? No, it's
Half.
now it's half, yeah. With the month, it's half, okay? So he's seeing, okay? So, you know, based on where he's sitting, yeah, in the car, he can see the moon, yeah? So when we start like driving from Ras Al Khaimah, he start to see the moon. So I told him, this is the moon, okay? And he said, I told him that the moon will come with us. And he's thinking that the moon what? Will come with us, okay? And then, like, you know, when we're almost like in Ajman with the buildings, we couldn't see the moon, okay? And he thought, oh, the moon went out, okay? He left.
Yeah.
But when we arrived home, he said, okay, oh, the moon came back. And he will come and sleep with me. You see, like, you know, it's because children
It's like
what?
a story.
Yes, a story and imagination, okay? Because they think of sometimes imaginary friends and all that, okay? So you connect it. Later on, like, I can bring what story at home, and I can tell him this is the moon, and yeah, and that's how you start to. For him, he start to construct, and sometimes what reconstruct. I mean, the idea of the content or a word or a difference, okay? And sometimes they do what? Deconstruct. Okay? For example, the word go. Okay? For example, the word walk. I think you said it in the grammar. So walk in the past will be what? ED, yeah? Okay. Go will be what?
Went.
Yeah. The children in that age, they don't know it's went, yeah? They will say what? Go, yeah? So what they construct, okay? The ED, okay? When they try to, let's say, deconstruct, like change it, and they learn and acquire the language, then they will understand what is what? Went. Okay? So that's the idea of construct, reconstruct, and all these kind of stories, okay? Like for example, here the example, like when you say this is full moon, what does that mean? As I said, it's whole, yeah? Like it's like circle, yeah? Like ball, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. But for this kid, full to mean what? Yeah, sometimes when I say I'm full,
Yeah.
I'm not hungry anymore, yeah? Or maybe I'll say she's full, like what? Fat, yeah? Okay, so in her mind, when the mother, she said the moon is full, she's thinking what is, the moon is what?
Fun.
Fat, okay? So that's how the child try to what? To construct, build the meaning in their mind, okay? And sometimes reconstruct, and then when with the mother, or let's say the teacher guidance, try to guide and scaffold. What does mean scaffold?
I know that word. Is it like putting things together?
Yeah, you assist to put in a higher level, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, do you remember with the interaction theory, when you said +1? Yeah, it's kind of like, the input, the comprehension input, yeah?
Yeah.
You try to understand. So you try to what for this full, the mother will explain, no, full is mean what? It is like a circle. And maybe she can explain about the month and all those kind of stories, okay? Okay, so that's the behaviors. When you said what? The imitation, yeah? They learn by what? By imitating and the behavior. And usually what we do more of what? Interaction, yes? Sometimes social interaction, because they learn by what? Interacting. For example, why sometimes the autistic children with autism, who like suffer with autism, they don't learn that much? Because what?
They're not communicating.
Yeah, they are not socializing with other people, yeah? Especially with the language. They mostly socialize with what?
Other
Technology, yeah? Sometimes whatever in technology they might acquire it, but because they don't produce a language, so that's the reason of the issue of the language. There is like something like interrupt the process, the whole process, okay? It's like a second, it's kind of seconds, okay? Or disorder. Okay. So as children, like with behaviors, they think about what? You have to develop a skill. Mahara. How will you develop a skill? It takes what?
Practice.
Practice and time, yeah?
Yeah.
You try to teach them through like a process, and that's what we are doing in our class, yeah? To learn a language, it needs what? A skill, a mahara, yeah? Like for example, let's say the first time you take time just to hear the language. You might go to the speaking center as Fatma wants to try to do, because what you will learn a skill from the tutor, yeah?
Yeah.
He or she will teach you how you can learn through other strategies, or maybe through technologies, okay? So it's not only through him, okay? So it's what? A skill. And sometimes it takes what? Structures and routine to practice, okay? And for example, this is what we have mentioned before, like people operate in their environment to produce learning. We call that action what? Operance, yeah? And we have mentioned also that in the previous sections of this class.
Yeah.
Okay, so people, they try to operate. What does mean operate?
To let something work.
Yes, to do things, to learn the language, yeah?
Yeah.
As for example, what